Hello and welcome. Today, we are diving headfirst into Web3. You've probably heard the term thrown around. It's a world that seems full of hype, maybe a little confusing, but our goal today is really simple. We're going to break down what it is, how it actually works, and why it just might be the next evolution of the internet. So, to really get what Web3 is all about, let's start with a big question. Think about it. What if you could truly own a piece of the internet? I mean, really own it. Every photo you post, every video you make, every piece of art you create, how do you prove it's yours? How do you actually control it once it's out there? This idea, this promise of real, verifiable digital ownership, that's the whole ballgame. That's what's driving this entire revolution. All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll talk about what's broken with digital ownership right now. Then we'll get into the technology that aims to fix it, the blockchain. From there, we'll check out some real-world uses and this cool concept called tokenization. We'll see how this is rewriting the playbook for creators, and then we'll wrap up with some real talk on how to navigate this new frontier. Okay, first up, let's redefine digital ownership. To really get why we even need a new technology, you have to understand the fundamental problem with the internet as it is today. You could call it the problem with pixels. You know the feeling. The second you upload something, your intellectual property, you kind of lose control. Digital files can be copied infinitely. A right click and a save, and suddenly your work is everywhere. For creators, this is a nightmare. Trying to keep control is a full-time job. And finding where your work's been stolen, that's like searching for a needle in a massive global haystack. And even if you find it, enforcing your rights can be so complex and expensive, it's often not even worth it. But this is where it gets really interesting. What if there was a technology designed from the ground up to fix this very problem? A system built to be secure, to be transparent, and to prove without a doubt who owns what online. Well, that technology is here. And that technology brings us right to our next section. What is blockchain? You've definitely heard the hype, but let's get past that and look at what this thing actually is and how it works.
So if you strip away all the jargon, a blockchain is really just a digital record book, a ledger. But it has a couple of superpowers. First, it's decentralized. That means it's not stored in one central place. It's copied and spread out across a whole network of computers. And second, its records or blocks are linked together using cryptography, which makes the whole chain permanent and practically impossible to tamper with.
And this right here shows you the huge shift in thinking. Traditionally, we trust central gatekeepers, like a bank or a government, to manage our records. And that's fine, but it can be slow and it creates a single point of failure. If they go down, everything goes down. Blockchain completely flips that on its head. By spreading the ledger out across a network, it cuts out the middleman and builds trust directly into the system itself. That's what makes it so transparent and so tough. Okay, so that's the tech. But what's it actually good for? That brings us to section 3. Because trust me, blockchain is about way more than just cryptocurrency. Let's look at how it's being used to solve real problems right now. I mean, the possibilities here are just, wow. They're incredibly diverse. We're talking about everything from faster, cheaper money transfers and self-executing smart contracts to tracking goods across a supply chain and securing our personal identities. It's being tested in healthcare, government, and of course, in media for copyright. And yes, this is where that term you've heard a million times comes in, non-fungible tokens, or NFTs. We're getting there. And listen, this isn't just theory. Big companies are already on board. Block's Cash App uses it for Bitcoin trades. Chainlink Labs is building the pipes that connect smart contracts to real-world data. Even a giant like DHL is using a blockchain ledger to track shipments and keep their records straight. This isn't science fiction. It's happening as we speak. Now let's zoom in on one of the most powerful ideas that blockchain makes possible. Section 4, the rise of tokenization. This is where the physical and digital worlds really start to merge in a fascinating way. So what on earth is tokenization? It's actually a pretty simple idea. You're just creating a unique digital token on a blockchain that represents your ownership of a real-world asset. Think of it like a digital deed or a title for literally anything. A painting, a house, a vintage car. It's a way to take things that are traditionally really hard to buy and sell and make them easily tradable online. And the process isn't just random, it's very methodical. First, you have to value the asset and do all the legal homework. Then you divide that value up into a bunch of digital tokens. Next, a smart contract gets programmed with all the rules, like who gets paid what and when. And this last step is absolutely crucial. It all has to comply with financial regulations to make sure it's all legal and legitimate. So, how does this idea of tokenization become a real practical tool? Well, it's creating an entirely new playbook for one of the fastest growing parts of our economy, the creators. And the scale we're talking about here is just massive. There are an estimated 400 million creators in the world today. 400 million. That is a gigantic global community of people making amazing stuff, building audiences, and looking for better ways to turn what they love into a real career. This quote from the SMU Meadows School of the Arts just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly explains how blockchain solves that age-old problem for digital artists. For anyone who's ever had their work copied and passed around without credit or payment, the blockchain can finally serve as a permanent, public, verifiable digital certificate of authenticity. And this brings some real game-changing benefits. NFTs, which are just these unique tokens, can prove authenticity and who the original creator is. They let artists sell directly to their fans, cutting out the galleries and other middlemen who take a cut. Smart contracts can automatically pay the artist a royalty fee every single time their work is resold, and with fractional ownership, an artist can sell off shares in a big piece, letting their community invest right alongside them. Okay, before we all get a little too carried away with the possibilities, it is time for a reality check. In our final section, we're going to talk about how to actually navigate this new frontier, because where there's huge opportunity, there's always real risk. It's so important to remember this space is still very, very new. The legal rules are still being written, which creates a lot of uncertainty. The high energy use of some blockchains is a major environmental issue, though many are working on that. And because the tech is so new, traditional investors don't quite get it yet, and we're still figuring out tough questions around things like copyright. This all leads to what is probably the single most important piece of advice you will ever hear about this space. It comes from a Reddit user, Kujay, who put it perfectly. Learn. Before doing anything, you need to educate yourself. In a world with this much noise and hype, knowledge is your absolute best defense. Ultimately, it's about a mindset shift. You have to learn to look past the crazy hype cycles and the promises of getting rich quick. Instead, focus on the fundamentals. Ask the right questions. Does this project actually solve a real problem? Who's behind it? Is it built to last? That's where you'll find the real long-term value. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. This technology is fundamentally changing what it means to own something. It's a huge shift in our digital lives, one that could put more power and opportunity back into the hands of individuals. The question really isn't if this is going to change things. It's how will you choose to be a part of it? Thanks for joining me.